A new tool gives our streets division a leg up in winter.
It helps make it so that the snow and ice doesn't bond to the surface of the road.
Plus, avoid towing fines by knowing the city's snow emergency rules. And finding love at the senior center leads to a wedding during the pandemic.
So thanks to COVID, we got married.
Lastly, learn about the organization that helps link our communities together through roads, bike lanes, and trails. Those stories and more coming up on this edition of Iowa City in Focus. Winters in Iowa are tough, especially trying to keep the roads clean. That's why the city invested in some new tools to help our streets division keep drivers and pedestrians safe.
Our newly purchased equipment that will help us with winter preparation is our salt brine making machine and our truck blending station. It allows us to be more efficient in our winter operations and allows us to do anti-icing on the road before a storm. The process in making brine is dumping straight salt into a big stainless steel tub. And then water starts running into the machine and it continues to circulate until the salt brine is at a 23.3% concentrate of salt. That is when salt brine is most effective at that concentrate. This machine has the ability probably to make in between 4,000 and 6,000 gallons of salt brine per hour. So after the brine maker gets done making brine inside at 23.3%, it pumps it out into these tanks behind me. There's 3 10,000 gallon tanks and 2 of them are for salt brine. So we have the storage capacity of 20,000 gallons of salt brine at any given time. Our other 10,000 gallon tank is for a material that's a lot like beet juice. It's used to treat our salt. It helps it from balling up during extremely cold conditions. In preparation for an event, our staff will be out doing what's called anti-icing. So our crews will be out before a storm, putting salt brine on the road, and what this is doing is preventing the bond between snow and pavement as the snowfall starts to happen. And then also have enough salt brine on hand during the event so that our trucks can utilize the salt brine at the spinner when it's going on the road during an event. So when the spreading takes place, there'll be less material bouncing on the road and potentially bouncing off the road. Some studies have proven that up to 30 or 40% of the material that is spread out the back of a truck gets splattered off or bounces off the pavement. So adding salt brine to our sand and salt as we spread it on the road is actually helpful. With the right training and our staff using that training, we should be able to cut some of our salt amounts that we put on the road. Salt brine in itself is very efficient. For every 1 ton of salt, that creates about 800 gallons of salt brine. Our whole brining system will be huge for all snow events and our staff. It allows our staff more time to respond to events, and it allows safer travel.
not often that the city needs to declare a snow emergency, but when it happens, it's extremely important that you know what to do. This has a major impact for on-street parking, and not knowing the rules could be an expensive mistake. A snow emergency is designed to limit on-street parking during a large winter weather event in order for plows to completely clear the streets.
A trouble that a plow driver is going to have when there's parking on both sides of the street, it's very congested, and we cannot get the snow to the curb where it needs to go.
This process has major impacts for those who park on the streets, so let's walk through the steps.
When is a snow emergency declared?
We try to make sure that a snow emergency is warranted. Other communities may just declare it when they see the snow coming, but it needs to be warranted because it is a very large event.
The city manager, the public works director, and the street superintendent review several factors during a winter event.
We look at how much snow is currently on the ground, what is forecasted, are there parking issues.
Once declared, how does a snow emergency impact on-street parking?
First rule, follow all existing street signs. Second rule, drivers must pay attention to whether it's an odd or even date. Streets that normally permit parking on both sides will switch to alternate parking. You can only park on the side of the street that corresponds with that odd or even date. For example, if a snow emergency is declared on the 13th, vehicles can be parked on the odd side of the street. The following day, the 14th, cars would need to be moved to the even side of the street. Streets that only allow parking on one side will still have to follow the marked traffic rules during a snow emergency. That means if parking is allowed on the odd-numbered side of the street, vehicles can park on that side only on odd-numbered days such as the 13th. But on even-numbered days, like the 14th, no parking would be allowed on the street. If you're on a street that already rotates alternative parking on the odd and even sides of the street, then you simply continue to follow those marked parking rules.
Once declared, how much time do you have to move your vehicle?
And we want to give people ample time to move their vehicles. Typically, the snow emergency would take effect 4 hours after we've called it.
If declared after 8 p.m., the snow emergency ordinance will not go into effect until 8 a.m. the following day. These emergencies will last at least 2 days, and even longer if conditions warrant. When a snow emergency is declared, the city allows vehicle owners to park in city ramps overnight, but they must be out by 7 a.m. to avoid charges. People can also use the parking lots in Lower City Park, Mercer Park, and Happy Hollow Park.
How do I know if a snow emergency has been declared?
The city will alert the public using several methods, but the most direct is to sign up for notifications through our e-subscription service. That allows you to get email or text alerts. Notifications will also be posted on the City of Iowa City's website, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and Nextdoor. Commuters would be alerted by traffic signs placed around town.
There are signs posted through the main thoroughfares as you come into town to notify you that there is a snow emergency taking place.
What are the repercussions if I don't follow the ordinance?
The consequences that you can face by not following the snow emergency is that your vehicle would likely be towed. There is a ticket that comes along with that, as well as a towing expense, and it can lead to upwards of $200 just in costs if you don't move your vehicle.
The city's goal is not to have this happen, so please make sure to stay alert in the event that a snow emergency is declared.
I'd like to thank all the residents for being patient with us. Our goal is to get people to and from where they're going as safely as possible, and that does take patience with all the residents that we have.
Nope. Wrong. Really? That's it.
The Iowa City Senior Center is a place for lifelong learning and making social connections. You're about to hear the story of two people who found that and more at the center.
We have a class that's Write Your Life Story. I noticed her come into class.
It was interesting to hear his stories. I saw a patience and sensitivity in Warren through the stories.
Basically, we would write about the episodes that had impact in our lives. And So it was through that I, would find out things about her.
So then he started coming and eating lunch at the table where I was. We got to know each other more.
And I think it was the exchanges that we had at lunch that I started saying, oh, we seem to have interests in common and that have a similar attitude. And before I knew it, I was mentally involved and emotionally involved. Well, we really didn't date.
I had no intention of being in a relationship. No intention at all. He kind of had to convince me.
I will tell you that Jerry asked me questions before we really got serious, that in my entire life I'd never been asked questions like she did. She was going to make sure that she had all the proper answers before
I committed.
We just seemed to start spending more time with each other in the dining room and then having a little more conversations after class. So we never really dated, we just kind of became close friends.
And we found out we had lots of things in common, like the same music and the same kind of books and on the same side in politics. That would have been a deal breaker, I think.
My deceased wife had left me a dog to take care of, a little Chihuahua named Ginger, and I needed someone to take care of the dog, and I was telling her that, and she says, well, I'll take care of the dog. And that's what started it all.
I said, I'll watch her for you. And I did, and he hardly left. I got the dog and him. We were together for probably almost a year before the pandemic hit. And we spent quarantine together and didn't get into any arguments. So I thought, well,
God, I'm glad we're together. Because it would have been more of a challenge because we really cared for each other.
A new company took over the management of Ecumenical Towers, and they had put down in the lease that said you could only have a visitor for 2 weeks and no more than 60 days a year. And I was like, that's not going to work. So I was like, let's get married.
So thanks to COVID, we got married. We had to make an appointment to get a marriage license because of COVID. Finally settled after about 4 different spots at the flower-trimmed walk at the city pool in City Park.
I wanted a crown of flowers.
We were fortunate. My son was my best man, and her daughter, Jennifer, was matron of honor.
I wanted Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind, read. And then we each read our vows to each other.
Sometimes. It seems like a dream, and yet it's like we've been together forever and really enjoy each other's company.
Mm-hmm. Enjoy whatever time we have. Make the most of it.
We really have pledged to each other and vowed forever.
Forever.
Whether you travel by car, bus, bike, or on foot, you rely on our community transportation systems, and these networks of roads, bridges, trails, and sidewalks are all carefully planned out by an organization that you might not be familiar with.
What is an MPO? Federal law requires the establishment of a Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, for all urbanized areas with populations over 50,000. The Metropolitan Planning Organization of Johnson County, also known as MPO-JC, includes Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty, Tiffin, University Heights, and portions of unincorporated Johnson County. The MPO helps guide the development of the transportation system through metro-wide planning and the distribution of federal funds. This ensures that federal dollars spent on our infrastructure meet the needs of the metro area and are sustainable over time. To do that, we use a travel demand model to forecast how people will travel in the future and where they will go. The transportation system includes roads and bridges, sidewalks, bike lanes, off-street trails, and public transit, which includes bus systems and potentially passenger rail in the future. While each community has its own goals and priorities for development and growth, the transportation system linking communities together should be seamless and coordinated. A policy board made up of elected officials from each community, along with appointed representatives of the University of Iowa and the Iowa City Community School District, work together to set priorities for federal funding on eligible infrastructure projects and transit programs. In order to inform the decisions of the board and to meet federal requirements, the MPO maintains a long-range plan that considers major infrastructure projects extending out 25 years into the future and provides a set of criteria for evaluating projects. This set of principles helps to guide the Metropolitan Transportation Network and forms the basis for determining funding priorities for infrastructure projects. The MPO's professional planning staff collect data and provide technical analysis, planning, and programming for transportation-related projects. Ultimately, the purpose of the MPO-JC is to facilitate cooperation between communities in order to build a comprehensive and coordinated transportation system, one that serves the needs of the people, businesses, industries, and institutions that make up our metro area. If you'd like to know more about us and what we do, follow us on Facebook or Instagram, or visit our website at mpojc.org.
That's our show. We'll be back soon with another edition of Iowa City in Focus.